The lights of the debate hall blazed like a spotlight on a stage where history was about to be rewritten. Cameras flashed relentlessly, capturing every nuance of the faces in the room. Journalists whispered, their pens poised, while the audience leaned forward, sensing that something extraordinary was about to happen. It wasn't just another political debate. The air felt electric, tense, charged with a quiet urgency that made hearts pound. Every eye was on the podium, every ear straining to catch the first words that would break the silence. Then she spoke. Jasmine Crockett, poised and unflinching, stepped forward with a calm authority that cut through the hum of murmurs. Her voice was clear, precise, and unapologetically direct. "What you said just doesn't add up, Mr. President." The words hit the room like a thunderclap. Gasps erupted from the audience. Reporters froze mid-sentence, their pens suspended in the air. Even the camera operators faltered, unsure whether to capture the moment or simply let it exist in stunned silence. The hall seemed to contract around that statement. Conversations died instantly. The only sound was the faint hum of cameras and the heartbeat of anticipation that echoed in every chest. Her words weren't loud, but they carried weight, a moral gravity that demanded attention. For a moment, the world seemed to pause, holding its breath, waiting for what would come next. Joe Biden, seated across from her, blinked rapidly, a flicker of unease passing over his face. He had expected politeness, measured questions, the rehearsed back and forth of a debate stage. He had not expected confrontation delivered with the precision of truth and the calm certainty of someone unafraid to call him out. The contrast was stark. One figure rattled, defensive, the other unshaken, dignified, commanding. Across social media, the first notifications began to appear. Clips of her line were instantly shared, tagged, replayed. Comments poured in, disbelief. Pride. In living rooms across America, people leaned closer to their screens, captivated. Even those who disagreed politically felt the tremor of the moment. Something unprecedented had begun, and just as quickly as the words landed, attention hung in the air, unbroken, waiting. Every spectator, every viewer, every citizen following from home felt it. This was only the opening move. The real confrontation, the clash of conviction against complacency, was about to unfold. But what happened next left the entire country speechless. The cameras kept rolling, but the debate hall was no longer just a stage. It had become a battleground for America's future. Jasmine Crockett's words had pierced through the usual political theater, exposing the fault lines in a nation grappling with its own contradictions. This wasn't merely about policies or partisan talking points. It was about the direction the country was taking, about who truly had the courage to confront injustice and who merely relied on the weight of history to shield them from accountability. The topic that had sparked this moment was more than a fleeting policy disagreement. It cut to the core of the nation's identity: the economy, social justice, immigrant rights, and the promises of opportunity and equality that had long been debated but too often left unfulfilled. Americans across every state, every background, were watching closely because the stakes were immense. Jobs hung in the balance. Access to education and health care teetered on the decisions of those in power. And communities long overlooked were desperate for leadership that could transform rhetoric into real change. Jasmine, embodying that leadership, spoke for millions who felt unheard. Her challenge to the president was not just verbal, it was emblematic. It represented the courage of the young, the disenfranchised, the immigrant families striving for a better life, and the citizens demanding accountability from those who claimed to serve them. Every phrase she uttered was calculated, deliberate, and heavy with the weight of moral authority. Each word reminded viewers that this was no ordinary political exchange. It was a defining moment that could reshape the conversation about leadership, responsibility, and justice in America. The audience sensed the tension immediately. Senators, journalists, and political aides shifted uneasily in their seats. Murmurs had returned, but now they carried a sense of urgency. This was bigger than one debate. Social media, as relentless as ever, erupted with speculation and commentary. Clips of her pointed questions and the president's tentative responses began circulating. Hashtags emerged instantly, trending nationwide. People from every corner of the country debated, shared, and replayed the moment, trying to make sense of what they had just witnessed. The debate had transformed into a cultural event, a litmus test of integrity and leadership. And yet, there was more at stake than just public perception. Economic policy decisions, legislative priorities, and the very moral compass of the nation hung in the balance. The consequences of inaction, of blind adherence to the familiar, of ignoring calls for justice, were enormous. Every voter, every observer, understood that this exchange symbolized a fork in the road. One path of accountability and truth, the other of inertia and complacency. Jasmine's challenge illuminated that choice in stark relief, making it impossible for anyone to look away. As the debate intensified, the world began to grasp that this was not simply a staged confrontation. It was a mirror reflecting the hopes, fears, and frustrations of millions. The energy in the room was palpable, each second stretching longer, each statement heavier. The stage had shifted from a controlled arena of rhetoric to a crucible where character, conviction, and courage were being tested in real time, before the clash could even escalate. The public learned something shocking about the man on the other side. Joe Biden had long been considered a fixture of American politics, a man whose name carried weight in every corner of the nation. For decades, he had navigated the halls of power with a practiced ease, his presence a symbol of experience, of the old guard that had steered the country through tumultuous times. To many, his longevity was a testament to skill and resilience, but beneath the polished veneer lay a history riddled with missteps, gaffes, and moments that revealed a disconnect. From the realities facing ordinary Americans, his career was a tapestry of public service intertwined with controversy. As a young senator, Biden had built a reputation for being a dealmaker, someone who could bridge divides, but the compromises he struck were not always with justice in mind. Over the years, he had made decisions that now spark debate and, at times, outrage. Policies that disproportionately affected marginalized communities. Votes that seemed out of step with evolving social values, and public statements that, in hindsight, revealed a troubling lack of awareness. All these moments accumulated into a narrative of complacency. The public had long seen him as dignified, even paternal, yet there were countless instances that suggested a troubling arrogance beneath the surface. Flashback moments from speeches decades ago showed him speaking over colleagues, dismissing questions with a wry smile, confident that his seniority would carry him through any disagreement. Interviews revealed pauses, verbal stumbles, and remarks that skirted accountability, all while the cameras captured every nuance. For someone so experienced, there was a growing perception that Biden had begun to rely too heavily on reputation. Rather than conviction, even on the campaign trail, the cracks were evident. Staffers recalled moments when he appeared distracted, relying on rehearsed talking points, occasionally missing key details about legislation he had once championed. Public appearances sometimes spiraled into awkward exchanges, moments that would go viral and dominate social media cycles for days. Yet, despite these lapses, he remained a political heavyweight, his authority unquestioned by many in the establishment. Power, it seemed, had given him immunity from the full scrutiny that others faced. And then came Jasmine Crockett. She was young, precise, and fearless, a stark contrast to the complacency that had crept into Biden's public persona. He had faced challengers before, of course, but few had the clarity of vision and moral certainty that she carried into the debate hall that night. To the casual observer, he may have underestimated her at first, a rising star in Congress, a champion of justice and reform, and a voice for those often silenced. But the moment she spoke, the scale of that misjudgment became apparent. Cinematic snapshots of his previous debates seemed to foreshadow this confrontation. He'd faced fiery opponents before, but the boldness of his challengers had rarely matched the calculated precision Jasmine displayed. There were moments when his confidence veered into overconfidence, when the assumption that his experience alone would shield him from challenge proved dangerously misleading. Each stumble, each faltered, Response was amplified by a generation increasingly unwilling to accept rhetoric over reality. This was not a simple generational clash. It was the collision of complacency and conviction. Biden, a man whose authority had been built over decades, was about to encounter someone who refused to be intimidated by legacy or fame. His decades of political maneuvering, once impressive, now cast a shadow over the room, highlighting the stark contrast with a new wave of leadership, unafraid to call out failures with clarity and force. And as the cameras focused back on the debate hall, the tension in the air was unmistakable. The audience, both live and virtual, could sense the impending unraveling, the weight of experience meeting the uncompromising force of moral courage. Every glance, every subtle gesture spoke volumes. The nation was about to witness not just a clash of policies, but a confrontation that would expose character, reveal priorities, and test the very limits of political authority. But the real hero of this story is someone who has fought for justice long before this stage. Jasmine Crockett's story begins far from the bright lights of debate stages and the glare of media cameras. Born in a modest household, she learned early that the world did not hand out opportunities equally. Her parents worked tirelessly to provide for their family, instilling in her a sense of responsibility, resilience, and the belief that dignity and hard work could shape destiny. From a young age, Jasmine understood that the voices of ordinary people often went unheard, and she made it her life's mission to ensure that those voices mattered. Her education became the first battlefield in her quest for justice. She excelled academically not simply for accolades, but to equip herself with the knowledge and tools needed to challenge systems of inequity. Long nights of study and sacrifice taught her that preparation was the foundation of empowerment. Every exam passed, every debate won in school was a rehearsal for a stage much larger, one where the stakes would be nothing less than the futures of communities marginalized and ignored. She carried herself with quiet confidence, earning respect not through self-promotion, but through integrity, precision, and unwavering commitment to principle. After law school, Jasmine threw herself into public service, channeling her skills into advocacy that mattered. She represented clients who had been denied justice, fought systemic corruption, and challenged policies that left vulnerable populations behind. Each case became a testament to her dedication, a proof of her unwillingness to compromise on matters of fairness, and an example of how legal expertise could be wielded to serve the greater good. Victories in court were celebrated not for personal gain, but for the communities they lifted. And even losses fortified her resolve, teaching her that persistence in the face of adversity was the truest measure of courage. Jasmine's rise was not without obstacles. She faced political pushback, skepticism from opponents, and the persistent undercurrent of bias that women, particularly women of color, must navigate in public life. Each challenge she overcame added to her arsenal of experience, honing her ability to confront power without fear. She learned to read a room, to anticipate the strategies of those who relied on entitlement and authority rather than merit and principle. Her presence exuded both empathy and intellect, a rare combination that commanded attention without demanding it. Her legislative work further cemented her reputation as a principled leader, advocating for immigrant rights, social justice reforms, and economic opportunity. She became a voice for communities long marginalized by systemic neglect. Her speeches were measured but powerful, blending personal narrative with policy insight, always grounding complex issues in the lived realities of those she represented. When she spoke, people listened not because of titles or tenure, but because they felt she understood their struggles and shared their values. The courtroom and the legislature were only part of her journey. Jasmine also became a symbol of moral courage in an era defined by performative politics. Her public presence was deliberate. She chose her battles with care, never seeking fame, only impact. And yet, her reputation grew not through self-promotion, but through the undeniable force of her actions. Social media posts, viral speeches, and interviews showcased a leader unafraid to challenge injustice, articulate uncomfortable truths, and hold powerful figures accountable. Each appearance reinforced a pattern. Jasmine Crockett did not back down. She did not flinch, and she did not compromise. By the time she stepped onto the debate stage opposite Joe Biden, Jasmine Crockett had already faced far greater trials than any political gaffe or rhetorical misstep. She had confronted entrenched systems, navigated public scrutiny, and defended the marginalized with unwavering principle. Her calm confidence was not an act. It was the product of decades of preparation, lived experience, and a deep understanding of what was at stake for the country. Every word she would speak, every pause she would take, carried the weight of history and the promise of justice. Her journey illuminated why this moment mattered. Jasmine was not simply responding to a question or debating policy. She was asserting the power of conviction over complacency, truth over comfort, and courage over entitlement. The audience, whether in the hall or watching from home, could sense that the clash they were about to witness was the culmination of years of preparation, resilience, and unwavering dedication to principle. She represented a generation unwilling to accept shortcuts, a constituency demanding accountability, and a moral compass pointing toward integrity and justice. And with the stage set, the moment of confrontation began, and the tension was unbearable. The room was electric. Every eye trained on the podium where the clash of decades of experience and unyielding principle was unfolding in real time. Joe Biden leaned forward, attempting to project confidence, but his words faltered under the weight of scrutiny. Jasmine Crockett's questions were precise, each one a scalpel cutting through vague talking points. The audience could sense the imbalance immediately. She was composed, methodical, and unwavering, while he appeared increasingly defensive, his responses tinged with frustration. "What about the communities left behind by policies you've supported?" "For years," Jasmine asked, her voice steady, unwavering. She paused, allowing the question to linger in the charged silence. Biden shifted in his chair, searching for an answer that wouldn't reveal cracks in his narrative. "Made progress. There's been a lot of work done," he said, his tone defensive, the hesitation palpable. The camera captured the slight twitch of a hand, the tight line of a jaw, the fleeting glance to his aides, a subtle admission that he had been caught off guard. Jasmine pressed on, refusing to let ambiguity shield him. Progress? Many Americans are still struggling to make ends meet. Millions are questioning whether the promises made decades ago have actually materialized. How do you respond to that? Her words were deliberate, carefully constructed to highlight a reality too uncomfortable to ignore. The audience leaned in, sensing that she was not just asking questions, she was laying bare the disconnect between rhetoric and lived experience. Biden attempted to regain footing, citing statistics and previous achievements, but the effort rang hollow. "We've invested in infrastructure, in jobs, initiatives that support growth," he stammered, and a murmur ran through the hall. The audience was aware of every pause, every slip. Jasmine's calm demeanor only made the contrast sharper. She did not raise her voice. She did not lunge for dramatic effect. She relied on the power of truth, and it reverberated through the room. "You speak of initiatives," she said, eyes steady on his, "but people are still struggling with access to health care, affordable housing, and wages that keep them trapped in cycles of inequality. Are these initiatives truly enough, or have they simply been a shield for political convenience?" Her question hung in the air, each word measured, each pause magnifying its impact. Social media watchers at home were already tweeting in disbelief. Clips looping the exchange, hashtags trending faster than any previous moment of the debate. The tension was palpable. Journalists scribbled notes frantically, trying to capture not just the words, but the unspoken drama, the subtle shifting of power in the room. Biden's responses grew shorter, more guarded, while Jasmine's articulation of facts, policy, failures, and moral responsibility drew the audience into her orbit. Every statement she made highlighted his uncertainty. Every pause magnified her authority. By now it was clear to everyone watching this was not a typical exchange. This was a collision of preparation versus complacency, conviction versus entitlement. Biden's attempts to steer the conversation back to familiar territory only underscored the widening gap between him and his challenger. The room felt smaller, the spotlight sharper, the stakes impossible to ignore. The world watched as Jasmine prepared a response that would leave no doubt who held the moral high ground. Jasmine Crockett inhaled, her gaze sweeping the room with calm precision. The hall had gone quiet, the usual hum of chatter replaced by an almost tangible anticipation. Cameras zoomed in, capturing the subtle tilt of her head, the steady rise and fall of her breath, and the clarity in her eyes that spoke volumes before a single word left her lips. This was the moment she'd been preparing for, the culmination of years of advocacy, legal battles, and unwavering public service. And now, facing one of the most powerful figures in the country, she was ready to strike with the force of undeniable truth. "You speak of progress, of initiatives, of accomplishments," she began, her voice measured yet carrying an unmistakable weight. "But let's be clear. Millions of Americans are still living paycheck to paycheck. Families are choosing between rent and medicine. Children go to schools without basic resources. Immigrant communities are fighting just to be recognized as equal citizens. This is not progressed as a gap, a chasm that policies alone cannot close." She paused deliberately, letting the words sink into every corner of the room. The silence that followed was deafening. Gasps echoed from the audience, as if the enormity of her statement had momentarily frozen time. Biden's eyes flickered, a momentary flash of discomfort betraying his composure. He opened his mouth to respond, but Jasmine's next words struck with even greater force. "Leadership is not measured by tenure or titles. It is measured by results, by courage, and by the willingness to confront inconvenient truths, even when it is uncomfortable, even when it challenges the powerful." Her voice carried both accusation and clarity, drawing the audience into a shared understanding of justice denied and promises unfulfilled. Heads nodded, murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd, and the cameras captured the subtle signs of unease on Biden's face. A hand pressed to his mouth, a tightened jaw, the faint blink that betrayed uncertainty. She stepped closer to the podium, her presence commanding yet composed. "You have relied on legacy, on the comfort of authority, on the illusion that experience equates to moral clarity, but experience without accountability is hollow. And when communities cry out for fairness, when citizens demand equity, hollow words are not enough." Each syllable seemed to hang in slow motion, the audience caught between disbelief and admiration, sensing the moral gravity of the moment. Social media watchers were already tweeting in real time, clips looping across platforms, viewers replaying the cadence, the confidence, the sheer precision of her argument. The hall reacted as if on cue. A ripple of applause began at the back, hesitant at first, then swelling into a wave that swept the room. Commentators whispered in stunned astonishment, some shaking their heads, others scribbling furiously, realizing that the debate had shifted irreversibly. Even the most loyal supporters of the president exchanged glances, their expressions reflecting surprise, perhaps even grudging admiration for the clarity of Jasmine's rebuttal. The contrast could not have been starker. One figure flustered, searching for words, the other composed, articulate and unyielding. Jasmine did not pause for effect. She continued, each statement meticulously crafted to dismantle the assumptions that had shielded complacency for decades. "We cannot accept excuses. We cannot settle for promises deferred. And we cannot allow authority to silence the voices of those most affected by decisions made in distant offices." Her eyes met Biden's unwavering, and for the first time, the room saw a crack in the armor of the political heavyweight. He hesitated, the rehearsed cadence of his speech replaced by the urgent need to respond in real time to a challenge far more precise than anything he had encountered on a stage. Like this. The audience felt it in their bones. This was not political theater. This was a reckoning. Every pause she allowed was a punctuation mark. Every carefully chosen word, a spotlight exposing the inadequacies of power, untested by moral accountability. A journalist caught it on camera, a subtle shift in posture, a downward glance, a hand. that trembled almost imperceptibly. These details, magnified through slow-motion replay on television screens and social media feeds, became iconic in their clarity, symbols of a moment when courage overcame complacency. Her crescendo arrived. Naturally, not through volume, but through moral intensity. America deserves leaders who act with integrity, who listen with empathy, who elevate the voices of those historically ignored. Anything less is a betrayal of our shared future, our shared dignity, and our collective promise. The room seemed to hold its breath. The applause broke through like a storm, building into a thunderous affirmation of justice recognized, courage celebrated. Camera flashes captured every reaction, journalists leaning forward, aides murmuring to each other, audience members whispering, eyes wide, hearts racing. Even the pundits on television screens could not contain their astonishment. Tweets exploded in real time, clips of her statements trending nationally, commentators scrambling to analyze her arguments, hashtags forming spontaneously to celebrate her poise, intellect, and moral clarity. The ripple effect was instantaneous. Conversations ignited from living rooms to offices, from coffee shops to social media feeds. People who had never engaged in politics were now captivated, sharing clips, debating phrasing, quoting lines. The impact of her words transcended the room, spreading across the country like wildfire. And then, in a final act of precision, Jasmine leaned in slightly, her voice dropping to a tone both intimate and resolute. We can no longer allow power to intimidate truth, can no longer accept half measures as progress. It is time to act with courage, to speak with clarity, and to lead with conviction. The slow-motion effect of the cameras captured the collective intake of breath in the room, the subtle widening of eyes, the quiet nods of agreement. Even the president, seasoned in decades of public life, was visibly rattled, struggling to regain footing against a force greater than charisma or reputation, truth articulated with moral authority. For that moment, the world seemed to pause. It was not just a debate, it was a reckoning, a lesson in leadership, and a testament to the power of preparation, courage, and principle. And as the final words hung in the air, reverberating through the hall and across the digital universe, there was no doubt who had claimed the moral high ground. The aftermath was instantaneous. Social media exploded, and America couldn't look away. The moment Jasmine Crockett's words hit the debate stage, the reaction was instantaneous and explosive. Within minutes, social media feeds were flooded with clips of her exchange with Joe Biden, each snippet shared, commented on, and replayed. Hashtags like hashtag Jasmine Crockett, hashtag Truth Spoken, and hashtag Moral High Ground trended nationwide, sparking debates in living rooms, offices, and online forums. Memes capturing her composed, unwavering gaze circulated, juxtaposed against images of Biden's hesitant expressions, humor and admiration mingling in the digital conversation. Every post, retweet, and share amplified her presence. Turning a single moment into a viral cultural phenomenon, political commentators scrambled to analyze the exchange. Their coverage, a mixture of astonishment and reluctant respect, pundits dissected every pause, every pointed question, highlighting her rhetorical precision and moral clarity. Evening news shows replayed the clip repeatedly, commentators noting how she had shifted the narrative, forcing the president to respond to the realities of inequality, injustice, and unfulfilled promises. Even those who disagreed with her politically could not ignore the force of her argument or the precision with which she delivered it. The room for debate had expanded beyond policy specifics. It now encompassed accountability, integrity, and leadership in its purest form. Celebrities and public figures joined the conversation, lending their voices to the swelling chorus of validation. Artists, athletes, and activists praised her poise, courage, and clarity. Tweets and posts celebrated not just the content of her words, but the way she delivered them: calm, dignified, unafraid. Television hosts and social media influencers alike emphasized how rare it was to witness such a display of principle in an arena often dominated by theatrics and empty rhetoric. Each endorsement, each viral clip, created a chain reaction, cementing her role as a figure of inspiration for a generation that had long felt unheard. Meanwhile, ordinary Americans shared their reactions in real time. Comments poured in from communities that had often felt invisible in national conversations: immigrant families, marginalized neighborhoods, and young voters demanding accountability. Many expressed a sense of pride, seeing someone speak on their behalf with courage and clarity. Parents recorded their children watching the debate, explaining the significance of her words as a lesson in integrity and civic responsibility. The resonance was profound. Jasmine Crockett had not just delivered a rebuttal. She had sparked a collective moment of reflection, affirmation, and empowerment. The media frenzy extended beyond social platforms. Opinion pieces and editorials dissected the moral and political implications of her statements. Newspapers described the exchange as a turning point, a moment when a rising star demonstrated that truth and principle could still command attention in a climate often dominated by spectacle. The discussion extended into policy circles, where advisors and legislators began recalibrating strategies, acknowledging the undeniable impact of her arguments. In both mainstream and alternative media, the consensus was clear. Jasmine Crockett had shifted the conversation in a way few could ignore. Even Joe Biden's inner circle felt the ripple effects. Staffers, strategists, and allies recognized that the debate had altered the perception of authority on stage. His composure, once a given, now faced scrutiny, not just from political opponents, but from the public at large. The contrast between his uncertainty and Jasmine's calm, articulate clarity dominated headlines, creating a narrative that extended far beyond a single televised debate. The viral moments also inspired grassroots action. Community organizers cited her words as motivation to amplify their own causes, from voter registration drives to social justice campaigns. Activists highlighted her composure as a model for civic engagement, showing that courage and clarity could influence public discourse in profound ways. The momentum created a sense of FOMO among those observing from afar. Anyone not engaged in the conversation felt the weight of missing out on a defining moment in contemporary American politics. As the digital and physical worlds processed the debate, one truth became undeniable: Jasmine Crockett had transcended the stage. She had sparked a wave of social validation, public reflection, and national dialogue that would resonate far beyond the walls of the debate hall. Her words had become more than a viral moment. They were a catalyst for discussion, engagement, and awareness, creating a shared experience that united viewers across political, social, and geographic lines. But beyond the viral moments, a profound lesson emerged about leadership, courage, and truth. In the wake of the debate and the viral storm that followed, Jasmine Crockett's words began to resonate on a deeper level, beyond the spectacle and headlines. What the audience had witnessed was not merely a clash of personalities or political ideologies. It was a demonstration of principled leadership in action. Her calm, unwavering presence and unwavering commitment to truth illuminated the qualities that define not just effective leaders, but morally courageous human beings. The lesson was clear: dignity, courage, and integrity are forces more powerful than authority or tenure. Jasmine's example reminded Americans that leadership is not measured by how long someone has held office, or by the grandeur of their title. True leadership is measured by the willingness to confront difficult truths, to advocate for those without a voice, and to act decisively in the service of justice. She had exemplified what it means to stand firm when confronted with intimidation, to speak plainly in the face of obfuscation, and to elevate principle over performance. This was a demonstration of moral clarity that transcended politics. Speaking to the very values at the heart of a democratic society, her approach resonated particularly with those who had long felt sidelined in the political process. For immigrants seeking acceptance and opportunity, for working families striving for equity, for young voters looking for examples of integrity, Jasmine Crockett became more than a politician. She became a symbol. Her calm authority and intellectual precision conveyed a sense of hope, showing that courage, preparation, and moral conviction could challenge even the most entrenched powers. It was a reminder that every voice, every act of bravery, every principled stance contributes to shaping the nation. The imagery of that debate lingered in the minds of viewers. The flash of camera lights, the collective gasp of the audience, the slow, deliberate pauses as Jasmine dismantled arguments built on complacency. All these details painted a cinematic portrait of leadership in motion. It was not dramatized. For a spectacle, the drama arose naturally from the contrast between integrity and arrogance, clarity and obfuscation. Her victory was not measured in applause alone, but in the reaffirmation of universal values, honesty, justice, service to others. Jasmine's words also invited reflection on civic responsibility. She reminded Americans that democracy thrives, not on passive spectatorship, but on engagement, accountability, and moral courage. Each citizen, she implicitly conveyed, has a role to play in shaping the future, whether by speaking truth to power, advocating for community needs, or simply refusing to remain silent when injustice is evident. Her performance on the debate stage served as both an inspiration and a challenge to act with conviction, to value principle over convenience, and to trust that courage can overcome fear as the nation absorbed the implications. There was a palpable sense of uplift. Conversations in living rooms, workplaces, and online spaces shifted from outrage to reflection, from gossip to introspection. Americans were reminded that leadership is about lifting others, about amplifying voices that history has ignored, and about doing what is right even when it is difficult or unpopular. Jasmine Crockett's presence on that stage had turned a political exchange into a lesson in human dignity, courage, and moral clarity. And as the sun set on the day that would be remembered for years, the message was unmistakable. Courage, preparation, and integrity can move hearts, influence minds, and inspire collective action. It was a moment that transcended partisanship, speaking to the timeless values that bind a nation together. And so, the moment that stunned America also reaffirmed a timeless truth. Jasmine Crockett had done more than deliver a debate performance. She had reshaped the conversation, challenged complacency, and reminded America of the power of courage and conviction. Her words had reverberated far beyond the stage, sparking national dialogue, inspiring communities, and giving voice to millions who had long felt unheard. In that heated exchange, she did not just confront a political heavyweight. She symbolized a new era of principled leadership, one rooted in justice, integrity, and unwavering dedication to truth. Now, the story does not end here. This moment belongs to everyone who believes that courage matters more than authority, that dignity matters more than performance, and that speaking truth to power can create real change. You, as a viewer, are part of this movement. Every conversation you share, every discussion you ignite, and every reflection you inspire carries the ripple effect further. Your engagement transforms awareness into action and action into progress. So, take a stand with us. Subscribe to this channel to stay informed, inspired, connected to the voices that challenge injustice and champion accountability. Comment below to share your thoughts on Jasmine's words, her courage, and what leadership means to you. Share this video with friends, family, and communities who deserve to see that one person. Speaking with clarity and principle can shake the foundations of complacency and spark hope across a nation. Remember, this is not just a debate clip. It is a lesson, a call to courage, and a reminder that your voice matters. Join the conversation, amplify the message, be part of the movement that refuses to accept empty promises, celebrating leaders who rise with integrity and purpose. Jasmine Crockett showed America what true leadership looks like now. It's your turn to help the world witness it.